Check, check, quick sounds check. Can everybody hear me loud and clear? What's going on, Coach Paul?
Hey, Coach Jay. Checking also. Can you hear me?
Sounds good to me.
Happy Friday, if you can. Welcome, audience.
Sounds good to me. Happy Friday. We got a good check. Hey, Courtney. Um, Macros God, all forms are done. Trader J, Trina, Dan Trader, Rob Trades, Tyler, Ken, His Royal, Pete. What is going on, everybody? Hopefully, everybody had a good trading day, a good end to your week. Like Coach just said, happy Friday. Welcome to At the Buzzer, our market recap. This is your first time here. I am Coach Jay. That is Coach Paul. The goal of this segment is to review what happened in the markets for the day. We may talk about some markets that you have not traded before, but we believe our goal as traders is to identify opportunity, see how we could have taken advantage of those opportunities while managing our risk. I'm Coach Jay. I've been a Topstep Performance Coach for a little over a year, been trading for the past 12, and in the futures markets for the last 5, and that is Coach Paul. Coach Paul, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hey, I'm Coach Paul. I've been with Topstep for about a year and a half. As a performance coach, I've been involved in the futures industry for 4 decades. My focus is on risk management, and hopefully my experience can help you pass a combine or become a better trader. That's why we review here or at the buzzer. And I'll send it back to Coach Jay.
So thank you for that, Coach. Today was Friday, PPI day. We know we had CPI come out yesterday, PPI out today, and came in a little bit cooler than expected. Forecast was 6.7. If I'm looking at that correctly, nope, that's the different number. Came in hotter than expected, 1.8%.
I
Forecast
was going to say that's a big number.
1.6%. Yeah, that would have been a huge number. We would have been talking about something completely different today if inflation was ahead 6%. The number that I did misread there was the Canadian unemployment rate, a little bit lower than what was expected. But PPI year over year, 1.8%, forecast 1.6%, and our month over month stat over. Yep, there we go. Month over month, 0%, forecast 0.1%. Not too much of a move from that number in the markets. We did have some other news out as well. We know Fed Goolsbee was speaking today to wrap up the Fed speakers speaking for the week. But we also had Michigan sentiment come out at 68.9. What was forecast was a 71. Coach, any comments on those news? One thing I forgot that you did mention while we were in the green room. Tesla.
Yeah. That seemed to be the biggest headline. Down 8% for whatever reason. I know there was some kind of show last night. I'm a technician. But whatever went on, investors did not like it. 8%, that stock held back the NASDAQ. As we noticed, we'll go through the activity in the S&P versus the NASDAQ. The NASDAQ felt like it was carrying a weight, and that weight was Tesla.
Was Tesla. Elon announced the robo taxis yesterday. I didn't get to watch the event. I was taking a nap. But Tesla opened up down 8.5% today. I don't know where it closed exactly, but like Coach just said, very heavy on the NASDAQ. Let's pull up. That's the wrong screen. That's the wrong screen. Where's the screen with the quote board? There it is. Let's go over the top percentage movers on the day. There are about 35 markets that we can trade with Topstep accounts, not always in the equities. There's opportunity in other places. To the downside, we have soybeans down 0.96%, soybean oil down 0.98%, and nat gas down 1.57% for our biggest percentage mover to the downside. And then to the upside, we have silver 1.57%, platinum up 1.94%, and the Russell, our biggest percentage mover to the upside at 2.01%. To talk about our big four, the 4 markets that we trade. Go ahead, Coach.
Did you say the Russell?
The Russell. up two
Who is
point.
trading the Russell today? That'll be interesting to hear.
Yeah, I had it up on a side screen during fast markets while we were looking at the NASDAQ, and it made a 3-minute opening range breakout and never looked back. Would have been a really nice trade. Was a clean one. We can look at the chart when we get into them, but the Russell, a really nice move today. To talk about our big four, we have gold up 1.25%. The S&P's up 0.46%. Where is the NASDAQ on this list? Where are you, NASDAQ?
Uh, you- You've
Heading
lost the
somewhere.
Nasdaq.
Oh,
How things have
it was down
changed.
on the day. It was down on the day, 0.03%, and crude oil down 0.16% to round out our big four. All right, let's go to the NASDAQ. 'Cause that's what we were looking at during fast markets this morning. Looking to take a trade. We actually did get a house account trade eventually in this market. And if we look and start with the first 30 minutes of last night's open, coach, this market has been in this range for, let's go back almost 2 weeks
Three
now.
days.
Well, yeah, that tight of a
Yeah.
range, yes, but we haven't broken out
But
yet. 3 days we've been in this range, and didn't break out of it today, right? We were talking yesterday about the PPI print being the catalyst to break us out of this range potentially. If that didn't do it, I don't know what will. And maybe these markets are just waiting for the election. Um, with that being said, still presenting some opportunities to us. If we look at the first 30-minute open, excuse me, we did leave the range early. Price and volume leaving that range fairly early. Uh, But once we got outside of it, very choppy, staying in this range. Again, personally not looking for too much of a directional move prior to this PPI print overnight. Um, so nothing to the upside, and then we sell right back down to the bottom of that range.
yeah, very I can't say subdued because it broke last night.
Huh?
That must have been Tesla overnight dragging it down. But it got bought up right on the US Open, and literally it was unchanged. I can't even say violently unchanged, like passively unchanged, maybe. So wow, I did make a trade and I lost $21. Um, to me, that's a great day in the Nasdaq. S&P was a completely different story. When we'll get to that in a minute, we'll probably go over the Russell today, si- since that was the leader. So we haven't talked about the Russell in a while, but Nasdaq is just
In a range.
it's
It's in a
not the old
range.
Nasdaq of old.
And it will be right soon enough, right? As soon as we start talking about how it's a consolidated market, then we'll start having 400-point rallies in 20 minutes in the Nasdaq, and I can't wait for those days.
Yeah.
Those are fun to trade with micros, of course. If we go down to the news candle, here is the PPI print here, so we can see it. It was about a 60-point candle, not the biggest print on a 3-minute chart, and pretty much the same thing. We printed at the high. One of my favorite trades to take just for a quick scalp is allowing the news to print and then fading whatever the extreme of that range is, because we can see that VWAP didn't really follow the move. And again, it's a quick scalp trade, but presented an opportunity for 50 points. I think we did have some traders uh, mention that they did look and take that trade. So that's the news. Here is the New York session 3-minute open. And from that point, it was a buy. It was just, the first 15 minutes or so, pretty choppy. I think Dakota and I were both waiting for Michigan sentiment. And by the time the Michigan sentiment printed and left that range, we did come back and get a 50% test of the range. Coach, there was a big seller that came in here right at this 20,330, got rejected
And
immediately.
what did
And I,
we?
go ahead.
Is that a J? Is that a J trade right there?
I think so. Yeah, I think
Bought
it is.
below? Yeah,
Yep,
that is.
I think it is. I think it is.
Yeah, once it broke that high of that high volume, never turned around. Actually, that's the one that I made money on.
Nice.
I lost
So
on other ones in the NASDAQ, but that was a J trade.
breaking the high of this candle on this high volume and then pushing from there. I think Dakota and I were both looking for opportunities to potentially buy this, and was just a case of hesitation, right, on our part. And then the market starts to rally, and we're saying, okay, now are we late to this move? I think we did a really good job of having a plan. Initially, we were talking about shorting the market when it looked like a range bound market this way. I'm happy we cut the cord on that. But then after that, the market started to rally. We had some, decent upside targets, overnight highs, obviously an upside target. But once it started to rally, uh, both of us are kind of looking at it as, hey, we may be late to this move and just be patient to get in. And I am a believer that the market never leaves you. You can chase it if you want to, but it always is going to come back and get you. And where did we bounce? Right off of this 20,390, where at that point we were looking to get in. I think we got in on the house account at 20,408. So right after the bounce, for a quick trade, right? For a quick trade, it was uh, very low limited drawdown. I think we were in the drawdown maybe 2 points from the time we took the entry, and probably could have held it longer, but that was about what the market was presenting to us. And then after that, we got a couple more bounces off of those VWAPs as they continue to trend up. Uh, but at this point, I was done trading the Nasdaq for the day.
Um, yeah, well, that looked like the S&P yesterday. The first hour we captured the range. VWAP really didn't break out. It's slowly sloped out. But if you were a range trader, I think this was a good opportunity. If we look at an hourly chart, and we rarely do, but we had the hourly, the first hour come in. Which one is that?
First hour, you're saying
Yeah,
New York
there it
session?
is. Yeah.
Okay, right here.
That's in the NASDAQ.
This is the Nasdaq. Yep.
Boy, what a different. That was your opportunity right there, breaking the high
Yeah, breaking the high
of
that
the
first
first
hour.
hour. Because it was lower on the day. Interesting. So we rarely look at the hourly. The hourly is the initial balance. Once we broke over that, let's put a VWAP on that first hour. Probably there it is. You know, but you didn't catch that. Even if you caught that, there was opportunity. What I will say is, if you were short and it breaks out of that hourly first range, don't fight it. That if it was inside of it, yeah, you can hold on, but look at that. Once we got out of that, that's where the buyer came in. That was the biggest volume of the day. It held that candle, but I still believe the theme of the day was Tesla held everything back.
Not too much to say outside of that. We stayed in the range. It gave some opportunities. We will look at the S&Ps that did make a new all-time high today. 5868 quarter new all-time highs in the S&Ps. And here we go. Kind of the same chart.
Where's our buzzer, our horn? We don't have a horn for that, coach.
We don't. I need to talk to Eddie and Nick for a tick to get my soundboard all figured out over here. Uh, It took a backseat, but I definitely want one because it adds to the production value. I need my Jim Cramer soundboard. But here we go. The S&P is making new all-time highs. Very similar to
We
the
won't go
NASDAQ.
that extreme.
Very similar to the NASDAQ, leaving the range early on, selling off into the overnight, but holding the lows of this range at 58.15. And then, you know, after the news making this rally, the one thing I do want to talk about in the S&P is 58.60. 58.60, that'll probably be an important level going into next week as well. That was delta point of control for the day. Nick Fortick was calling it out in the chat the entire time. Every time the market pushed up into 58.60, there was a passive seller there, kind of absorbing any buying, and we can see what the hesitation looked like above it. So watch that 58.60 going into next week, so we can see whether or not that seller is still there. Go ahead, Coach.
Interesting. That was my first level of resistance was 58.60.
Nice.
The next one was 75. We couldn't get it, and it seems that that seller kept. Well, Tesla's is big in the S&P too. It's one of the top percentage movers in it. So that might have been the seller. Interesting. Yeah, because both these markets just felt, even though they rallied, felt like they were running with a a 50-pound backpack on their back. It wasn't great energy.
One quick trending move for the first hour and a half of the day, and then outside of that, really nice range. Opportunities for all styles of trading, right? If you're a trend trader, I saw a bunch of traders saying, "Hey, this 3-minute opening range breakout worked like a charm," and it looked a lot better in the S&Ps than it did in the Nasdaq, right? Where we left the range early, VWAP left the range early, and then just a really nice trend to start. Obviously, the momentum doesn't can't just keep run. Well, I shouldn't say that. It can do whatever it wants to do. Uh, but
But to
presented
be
a real
realistic, if you
correct.
got a 2 or 3 to 1 risk reward, if you
Did your
bought
job.
2, get out of 1, you did your job. Yeah, um, don't be greedy.
Uh, Outside of that, not too much on the S&Ps. Again, new all-time highs. I would watch 58.60, and we will see what next week brings. But the S&P is definitely a lot stronger still than the Nasdaq. Anything else on the equities, Coach?
Um, let's look at the daily really quick, or the weekly, since it is Friday.
Speaking of weekly, we had someone share in the chat, and he actually messaged me on Discord about the stats that they have for this trade. So I'm going to continue that conversation because I am interested in what those stats look like. But the stat that was shared this morning in the YouTube chat was to 100% probability, and my ears perked up when I heard 100%, Coach. If the
Yeah,
NASDAQ makes a weekly low on Monday, there's a 100% probability that we make a new weekly high on Friday. Uh, Now, there was a lot of discussion about whether or not when we made the weekly low this week in the Nasdaq. If we look at the charts, I'm going to go to a 30-minute chart. It looks like we made the weekly low on Tuesday. What date was Tuesday? Tuesday was the 8th. So we did make the low of the week technically on Tuesday's session. So maybe that stat is
technically,
safe.
because that was at night,
Yep. Yeah. Technically, that stat is safe.
so
So
that doesn't count. It's not Monday.
right, I
It
was
settled on Tuesday,
yeah,
so
didn't count. Your stat's still
100%
safe.
remains. It's still safe.
All right, let's go to the weekly chart. I'll go back to the S&Ps. We'll look at the weekly. There you go.
Does not look bearish to me. Um, that 60 could be a big number next week. I'm still, well, I have a flair for the obvious. Developed it in all my years of trading, but this is not a bearish chart. Just looking to buy the dip. You can call me a dip buyer. I'm fine with that. Um, a trend is a trend till it ain't, and this is a, you know, Which am I surprised we're making all-time highs? Yeah, considering this monster of an election coming here. But that's why I'm a technician. Um, I trade what the market shows me,
Yep.
and if there's bad news, it'll be reflected in the chart.
For sure. In the S&Ps, I saw someone just mention 6,000. In the chat, we are about 2.5% off of 6,000 in the S&Ps. That can happen as early as next week. If we get some choppy markets still, who knows, but not very far off at all. And it feels like the closer we get to it, the more the market's going to act like a magnet. And maybe we can get MP to buy 600 S&Ps at 6,000, the same way he bought 50 at 5,000. Um, we will see what happens. Uh, let's move on to,
Should have kept them.
yeah, that was I mean, these aren't
$2
back
million
adjusted
trade.
charts. Yeah, yeah, $2 million trade. And they gave us another opportunity to get back into it too on this little drop here in August. But really nice, would have been a really nice trade. I'm sure someone is in that position still. Let's move on to crude. Actually, here, let's go to the Russell real quick. And this will just be real fast on the Russell. And we talked about this before, but sometimes when the NASDAQ and the ES are a little bit choppier, the Russell and the Dow are presenting the trending opportunities. And here's a perfect example of that, coach. There's a 3-minute opening range in the Russell, and it was not playing any games today.
Wow. And look at the size of that opening range.
Yep.
Look at it. It's symmetrical to the news candle. That smells like a algorithm to me. Wow. Where was
We're not.
I?
Yeah, I don't know. I asked myself the same question. I have a bunch of screens up and I have a one screen up with just 6 charts looking for which market is presenting this better opportunity. Um, like a fly to a light bulb. Went to the NASDAQ, but the Russell is the one that presented the real nice opportunity. Really no pullbacks at all. Once we left, we got one pullback to VWAP, and outside of that, it was get in where you fit in because it was not giving a lot of opportunities to buy this. And if you're a counter trend trader, not a lot of opportunity for that either. We also had the Dow making new all-time highs, 43,810 in the Dow. Most of my money in my personal account, I made shorting the Dow because by the time I was looking to trade it, uh, it to me felt like it was a little bit too high for me to buy it up here. First trade I took during slow markets did get stopped out. I got short around 43.60 and got stopped out on this move up here. What I was looking for, coach, not a reversal of the trend, and I think I said it there. I was looking for a reversion back to VWAP, which the market eventually did. My stop was just a little bit too close. Got stopped out on some micros, and then pretty much right after we got off of fast markets, I switched over to my personal account, got short two, and the move that I was looking for happened. So um, right play, a little bit too tight on the read, but I like the read, and that's a trade that I would take time and time again, right? Why did I take it? We got extended from VWAP. At this point, we were on a 3-minute chart. We were, give me a second here, 4 ATRs away from VWAP. So looking for a reversion to it is a trade that I would take anytime. What I think I would have changed is waiting for the momentum to die out and then waiting for that confirmed 3-bar reversal pattern. But I like the read.
Yeah, you did it. I like that you came back to it. Um, and it's you the first one, you limited your exposure, you limited your loss, especially it's a fade trade. I
Hmm.
can't make those
Yeah.
um, because I can get into a stubborn streak, and stubbornness does not work in
Yeah.
trading. Um, but you came back, you limited it, and it was a nice trade. And where did hmm hmm what's that white line?
That is VWAP anchored to the New York Session Open. I'll make it a different color because the other important white line is the 200 moving average. I'm gonna make this red. Uh,
Jesus.
like yeah, but bounces perfect bounces right off of that, right near 43, 43,000. And me getting short here, I got in short. I think it was two or three contracts. I can't recall, but got in short and said, you know what, conservative price target is going to be this VWAP. And I got out the rest of it on the trailing this down, right? Because if the market wants to continue selling off, we saw the NASDAQ do it yesterday, where it tagged that 40, what was the price in the NASDAQ? 20,500 and then sold off 100 points. So conservative type price target VWAP. And I absolutely have to take some of the position off there, but I'm okay with the runner getting tagged out on the way back up because if this market just wanted to drop back into the opening range, I want to try to be a part of that if possible. And a really nice bounce after it.
Yeah. And here's another thing is if that target, like if I have that target, it's VWAP. What is the price, the first price when we touched it? So that target, I if I don't if I'm working the bid, there's a high probability that it's not going to get filled. So I'll put in in the Nasdaq 2, 3 points above it, because if for a couple
It's a great point.
points, if I don't get filled and it turns back around, it, it's horrible because then you have to fight. They took my toy away. I could have been someone, and then mentally it's just hard to go. Okay, I'll get when it next time it goes down there, I'll do it. Well, second chance trades are rare, and
Could
that
have
one,
easily just
and it never really closed. It never
no,
closed below.
nope,
And
just
you've heard
clicked.
me say it. I don't. Closes mean more to me than just a price.
Yeah, anytime I'm in a counter trend trade like this one, I know that if I wasn't in a trade, and yeah, we've seen it so many times that this is a buy signal. This is a signal to get into a long. So I could want this to drop, 1,000 points. I should be buying it here if I wasn't in a position. So I have to take something off. Look both ways before you cross the street. It doesn't matter where you are in the position, right? We'll go to crude oil in a minute. But if you manage the middle, there's money to be made to me on both sides, but you have to have reasonable expectations. And I've seen this bounce so many times that I wish I would have just hit the reverse button instead. Uh, but
It's Friday, reversal Friday.
right. That was it on the equities. Let's move over. Where are we going, Coach? Crude or gold?
Let's go to gold.
Go to
Start with that
gold.
half-hour bar from last night and see if
Got you.
this rings a bell.
Think you said you were in this one, right?
Yeah, not enough,
It's never enough. Uh,
right?
here
Is
is
this the 30?
Jesus. What? Yeah, that's the first 30 minutes in gold last night, and
Okay, I have nothing else to say.
let's just buy it. This one was really nice because of how early it happened. A lot of times we've been seeing these happen later in the day. Uh, this urgency, and that's what we're gonna call it. It's urgency. The session opens. These are lower volume times, and again, they never looked back to that range at all. We did get the little bit of a London pullback, but whoever was buying in this, I believe, was already buying in here from
Yeah,
the New York, and it
great
just
point,
continued
coach.
to move.
You talked about that yesterday.
Yeah, there was a big buyer at 2640 in gold
Oh, look
yesterday.
at that candle.
So this was yesterday's CPI. There was a huge buyer at 2640, and they held prices above that, right? So if we go
And they
back and
probably
we
bought more.
oh yeah, for sure, for sure.
Wow.
This is
Okay, that's like I said. It doesn't
nothing else to
matter
say.
if it's gold, S&P, Russell, um,
Australian
rice,
dollar.
Australian dollar, New Zealand, the Kiwi, whatever it is. I don't, and that's why I'm a technician. Um, Coach, that's why I really enjoy working with you. You added the, um, you had me learn volume to make sense, attach that to price, and you have a better chance. Do every one of these work? No, but as Coach said, there was a sense of urgency. Now, I had that trade last night. I want to bring it up. I go back. I go, why didn't I do 2 or 3? Well, because, and this is it. There's how can I be wrong if I over leverage? It's the most tempting thing to do. And you're on the hierarchy of decision making. The number one is to trade your equity.
So
Without it,
important.
you're not in the game. This isn't, well, there are resets, right? It'll cost you, but this isn't Nintendo. Um, and if you're going to be successful over time, you have to preserve your capital. Now, if you keep trading well and you double your capital in your account, guess what you can do? Double your size. Over time, you do that, it's an insane, it, it's an insane amount of money. But sometimes, and I've done this when I was young. I haven't done it in 20 years. Oh, I'll hold my beer. I'm buying 20. And all you need is one bad trade, and there goes the account. I
Such a great point.
don't get caught in that.
Coach, I would say when we see this urgency, and I don't know the stats, and shout out to the captain if you are watching. I think we may be working on some of
Oh,
the stats
he's
for
awesome.
this, but this uh, move here, I don't know what the percentage is. I tie like loose probabilities. I would say this is a 80% trade, and not just an 80% trade possibility of a winner. I would say an 80% probability of a trend for the rest of the day.
Yeah,
If it looks like this, right? It has to look like this where there's urgency and we leave very early. 80% probability of a trend for the rest of the day. But and we were talking about this during fast markets where that trader said, "Hey, this is a 100% trade, 100% probability." Great. We have that stat. How do you trade it, right? Because one would think, "Oh, if it's 100%, I'm just going to take the largest size that I can and I'm a millionaire, right, in a day." But you still have trade location still matters in all of this, right? Where there are going to be these natural drawdowns in the market. And if you are over leveraged because you think something is a sure thing, those are the times where you get stopped out on a trade and you're trying to figure out what's wrong with you. And it's nothing other than you are not managing your account. But beautiful move. Love to hear that you were a part of it, coach. I think I fell asleep right around here. And then I woke up when the market was up here and I was just like, oh man, I hope somebody's in that. But yeah, really, really nice trade.
yeah. And then one other thing about that management of the account, back in the day when I had hair, many years ago when I first started, I used to dream. This was before computers. Yeah, there was an age before computers, and I lived in it with dinosaurs. But I used to dream of getting the Wall Street Journal, because that's where you would go for prices and get that, so I could get ahead of every market and I'd be a billionaire. What I didn't understand when I had to learn is I could have had that, but I don't know what happens in between. And if I don't manage my equity or my account, and I over leveraged at the wrong time. No matter what that price is, I'm not going to get there because I blew all my capital. And and we
A lot of
talk about
times.
risk management. That is the first principle, is to keep the account alive. So even these are great trades. The temptation on the shoulder is just whispering, do fucking 10, right?
Yep.
Don't do that.
No. And it's easy to do
Because
because it feels like such a sure thing, but you could mess it up on the execution.
yeah. So it's Friday. We used to call it Capital Preservation Friday. I think capital preservation is any day that ends in Y. And then you become a better manager. And when you get to be a better manager and you start showing results, there's plenty of money out there for you to manage. That's like, there's too much money out there. Remember, great traders at one point go, no mas. I, because you have the hunter can become the hunted. But great trade in the gold, and we see it a lot. Um, and I think it's a great trade. It's a great combo, coach. I think it's been about a year since and boy, how many times have we seen that? That's just
Too many. But again, it's not about what it looks like. It's about how you execute on it. And Linus Rain made a good point as well. It's like, where do you exit on this? And are we saying that this is a guarantee that you capture this entire trend? No, right? There are some technical reasons that you may have gotten out of this trade. Uh, Close below VWAP, I want to get out. Maybe I'm out on the initial long, but that's still about a 7 point trade. But what's really nice about this is the opportunity that it gave us to get right back in on that PPI print where we checked right back down to that VWAP and continued from there. Coach, how did you manage this one?
well. I bought it, put in a stop 2 ATRs, and I sold it when I got. Oh, I tried to sell it. Oh, here's my. I tried to sell it at 51. That was at a resting stop because I had a level of resistance at 26.52,
61, I think
and it
you
went
mean,
up.
right?
Yeah, 60. Yeah, the 51.
51. Okay,
Right,
got you.
gold. Yeah. Um, I because I had a resistance at 52. That was the aim. It went up there at 48, then in on the half hour, double topped. It's a Friday. Um, I didn't want to be greedy. I watched it, look and see it stalled. And where did it stalled above VWAP against my resistance
Got
on
you.
my
Got you. Got you.
daily numbers. So I'm like, for a couple quid for our London listeners, I was like, um, I'm just going to take it, and I'll get back in Monday. I don't want to hold it over the weekend. Um, and kind of like weekends when there's war on a horizon. It's a those it's always good to lighten up. We don't trade, so I'll just leave it at that because we're day traders. So, but in the background, big money, like they make room for the weekend because news events happen on the weekend, and you're
Yep.
stuck in something. It hurts. So if there's no news, what's it going to do? Be relatively close to what it took off on Friday.
Gold
But
looks like it
gold,
has
we've been waiting for this. Where's the 200 bar moving average on the half hour?
right where we broke
Oh,
out.
okay.
Wow.
We've
Okay,
got to
that is
mention
a
that.
very powerful combination right there. Wow, that's pretty awesome. VWAP crossing above that 200 moving average as well. And we've seen At 20 and the 50 looked very strong, right? 20 and the 50 looked very strong. It just needed to push above that 200. And once it got above there, with some volume, just a really strong move. Wow. And looks like it has some room to
Yeah,
continue,
like I
right?
said,
Go ahead, coach.
why didn't I? And this is this is a trap for all you younger traders. Next time I'm putting more on. Well, we just went through that. Like it still sticks in me. I'm like, come on, boy, can't you do two? No,
Nope. Got to manage the
no,
risk because
because
nothing is 100%.
hindsight is the wisdom of fools. Um, in this situation, now going back to this, if you're trading and you're new, and always backtest and review because you have to know what to expect. That
For sure.
brings confidence to put on a trade, and actually to put on a trade, lose. Like if I wanted to sell gold, okay, once I got over 200, I'm out. Like we talked yesterday, it's still it's steep, but what changed that was the way. Okay, that half hour I can lean on that first half an hour, and then volume came in. Now there was nothing that when I got in that trade say this was going to hold. So when you find a good trade like this, there are times when it doesn't work. All right, it's a higher probability. That's all. So
Yep.
take
Outcomes are still
take
50-50.
those trades. Yeah, but remember, it doesn't. I mean, it doesn't guarantee anything. There are no guarantees. If there were guarantees, we wouldn't have markets.
I was gonna say if there were guarantees, I probably wouldn't be here talking to you guys. If I had a guarantee for every trade that I took, uh, I'd be on a
There is,
yeah, yeah, yeah. There are no
yeah,
guarantees.
yeah,
They don't exist.
yeah. So because we're reviewing and giving out some trade wisdom, but remember these aren't trade suggestions. I'll get that in there right now. Um, but as we review, we're here to give you some perspective. Um, if that works for you, if it helps you on your journey, hit that like button.
Well, look at you
If not,
becoming a
don't do
becoming a
anything.
becoming an
Yeah,
influencer. Just kind
yeah.
of casually threw that in there. This is helping you hit that like button. But seriously though, if you like what you're hearing here, if anything that we've said has helped you at all, go ahead and hit that like button. I did get a message, Kevin. Hopefully you don't mind me sharing this, but got a message from one of our traders, Kevin. Coach, thought you would like to hear this.
Mhm.
Uh, just want to tell you, I'm extremely grateful for you and your presence in Top Step. I'm a business owner working 80 to 100 hours a week, including weekends, so it's not easy to squeeze in trades. Uh, try my best to listen to you and Coach Paul on the At the Buzzer segment. I've implemented the anchored VWAP in all my charts and used volume profile and initial balance. I passed the combine maybe a month ago, but blew it the next day. Now that I'm funded over 1,300 across two funded accounts on the first day, trading with MNQ. Um, so Coach, we're helping
Wow.
people, and that's been the goal uh, from the start. And hopefully, we can continue to help people. And of course, anything we say is for educational purposes only. But hopefully, we're
That's
helping expedite your journey as a trader. Go ahead, Coach.
that's great news. That's why we're here. Um, that's why we share. And there's plenty of room. One thing, speaking of the captain, he once said people that are trading here are working people
Yep.
looking to get better.
Hmm.
And that's why we're here. I understand we've been in that journey. If you can garner that and help, and it helps you, that's what Top Step is for. Um, someone just put in professionals. Convince yourself that professionals do not have for sure trades. They do. Now, I'm going to give you some of my experience. You're right. Professionals that are at trading at a bank or a large brokerage firm that gets ahead of the order. Used to be called front running. How much justice can you afford? It doesn't matter. They can get ahead of a big order. They have it. I'll give you an example in a bit. Some brokers would get a big order to buy, like that gold order from yesterday. Hey, you got to buy 10,000. Okay. Now here's what he'll turn around, buy 10 for himself. Now I'm going to buy 5,000. That's a for sure trade because I'm going to move this market. That is not available to us. And I don't consider that a trade. I consider that a tax, but I'm not going down there. We don't have that. We have the constant uncertainty in front of us. That's why you hear us preach about risk management. Now, can you beat the odds? Yes, with risk management and finding trades that have better probabilities. So I am so glad to hear that. That's awesome. And that's what Top Step is all about. Sometimes we can watch Top Step TV and people can be very harsh. Well, you know what?
Sure.
No one on that show has a big order in front of them that they can front run. It's uncertainty. So, we live in a world that's always uncertain.
Yep.
And just to get going, learn how to manage your risk. That's what we're here for. We are not the Goldman Sachses of the world. We're here for you, and we support you. So I'd love to hear those stories. I'd love to hear some more.
Go over crude oil real quick. Crude, the last one for the day, the one that didn't really move too much. Here's our 30-minute opening range in crude, and kind of stayed in it. I did take a micro crude long during fast markets. That was my first trade of the
Yeah.
day, outside of this NASDAQ loss that I took. I don't know what I was doing there. But we we sold off from that opening range, and then kind of chopped around in it. Uh, I was looking for a breakout somewhere near this. What was this top step daily level? Yesterday's high, 76.24. Where I got in was at 75.44. I'll go down to a shorter time frame, kind of show you what I was looking at. And we have this consolidation here. We're at the lows of this range, and then I saw this little volume spike right here, coach.
Yep.
And from there, I
Sounds.
said, okay, I can buy this.
That's what you saw.
Yeah.
That. Well, that's what is that called? That trade? I'll
We're calling it the J
tell you. It's
trade.
called the J trade.
We are
I
calling
mean,
it the J
that's
trade. 3-bar reversal with volume.
there you go. And that one is that's like if you can catch 2 of those a day in anything, I mean, $200-300.
And I did get into this one a little bit late. Again, we were looking at identifying some trades in other markets. And Linus Rain, you brought up a good point earlier, so I am going to comment on that quote board point that you brought up. But yeah, so I got in the trade. We're above VWAP from whatever this spike was, and just see how much we can get a push, right? I think I said it during uh, the segment that I got in on this candle, actually. So I see this one, and then I got in on this one here. So again, I'm going to anchor a VWAP to that. And coach, the reason I got out of this trade is because volume never left that range, right? We pushed up to 76, 76 being a whole number level. We're going to need to see some convinced buyers get above there. And this VWAP from this, again, volume spike, which was now at that point the biggest one on the day, we never got volume to follow through and leave that range. So I need to take the trade off. I didn't just get out because at any point volume can just come in and surprise me, but I don't want to say, hey, my target's at 77 and I'm going to hold this and ignore the market information that's being presented to me. And at that time, the information was that there are no other buyers in this market.
Yeah, nice. And a good. Wow, that's a new approach too. Where you got in, the volume should continue. You limited. You had what? You had a little winner, didn't you?
Yeah, it was I think it was, so I got in at 44. I had a winner that was 60 ticks in the profit, and then I took about 40 ticks because I wanted to give it the room to go. And it was a 3 micro trade. So I'm on that trade alone, I made about $100. I think, P&L high for the trade was somewhere around 170. Wanted to give it the room, but of course did not want it to turn into a loser because the market information again changed, right? Volume never left that range. I can't keep holding on if it's not following us.
Yeah, and the the that's a classic scalp to my
Yep.
boy. That's a
Yeah.
scalp.
Uh-huh.
Um,
Could have turned into more, but it never caught up.
no, and crude was very tight range for a Friday. That's another one. Don't do you want to be short a large amount of crude over
Uh,
the weekend?
nope.
I think that played into this.
Trevor asked, why did I anchor the second anchor? That actually wound up being the highest volume of the day. And from that point, that's where I got into the trade, right? So I saw this one. Um, and again, we were trying to find a trade in the NASDAQ, but I did see this here, right? Which is an entry signal as soon as we close above that. But this is the candle that I got in. And that candle ended up being the highest volume of the day. So I'm going to anchor from there, right? My anchors usually go on market opens, events, or just high volume.
And that's a good point because Star Cinematic asked again. Yeah, there was new higher volume so think about it. What does that mean? Well, there's higher volume that was buying, right? So if there's more buyers and then it finished, the VWAP attached to that, it needs to stay over that unless there's some new higher volume, right?
Brian Shannon.
Th-
I haven't done my
yeah,
weekly Brian Shannon plug, but shout out to you, Brian. I love that book.
yeah, VWAP. I'll say it again. It's the greatest thing since sliced bread. It's the thing that I was missing. I love it. When I grew up in the pits, we only guessed at the volume. It was all guessing. I could hear volume literally because there'll be if it's rallying and the pit is very loud, it's going it's buying. It's, as soon as it got quiet and it was eerie, there would be a roar and then like the eye of the hurricane, just out, just stop.
Question to you, I think, Coach, not here, but how many trades, and this is personally why I use volume so much, how many trades were you making when the pits were quiet?
Not. If I wanted to fade, I just fade there. I'd sell one. If I was long and it was a volume and it was railing and it got cold and it got cold, it got quiet, just I'm out. And but when I'm gonna say I'm out, I'm in and out in market orders. I'm from a different breed. If I want in, I
Mhm.
want in. Because and especially on the out, even if I have if I have a resting order, I use a market if touched.
So if it gets to
I'm
that
out.
price, just get me out wherever you can. Yeah, because I mean, then you're trying to get a couple ticks here and there. It's probably better to just get out and with the peace of mind that hey, I got most of that trade and not trying to capture 100% of it. Uh, what do we got? We got 3 minutes. Big sexy during. How did you get your Nasdaq retracement number that I called out on Topstep TV? We talked about that one a little bit, but that was just anchored VWAP from the New York session open. New York session VWAP, this red line here. Dakota said he wanted to buy it, and I 100% agreed with him. Um, and we were looking for a place that made sense to get in. Originally, he was looking at 420s. It looked like it wasn't going to do it, and then ultimately they came back, tagged that VWAP, and bounced 80 points from there. Um, where do I find the lessons for VWAP? Right here. Rewatch these segments. We literally talk about this. Coach, do you get bored sometimes? I feel like we talk about the same thing every day. I
No,
love doing it though.
I
I
don't get
love
bored.
yeah, neither do I,
No,
because every time it's almost just like it's like a Aladdin, like a whole new world. Every time I see it, I'm just like, wow, like I want to find more of these. So hopefully, our audience isn't getting bored either. It's really cool to see the same thing happen time and time again. But you know, watch here. I think last Thursday's slow markets, I did a lot of questions on this anchored VWAP setup. So if you want to watch last Thursday's slow markets, not this week, last week, there are some good examples there too.
yeah, and someone said Brian Shannon's book. It gives you. I mean, he wrote the book on it.
Right,
To get a copy of that, and also, by the way, VWAP to me is an enhancement of my strategy.
for sure.
I'm looking at my strategy, and if volume is with it, I'm going. It just helps define it so much more. We have a question from XL Soft. Jay, do you always use a 2 ATR stop? And when you do you adjust? I'll give a quick for that. I use the 2 ATR stop.
Yep.
Right to you, coach.
That's if there's one thing that I want to add to my trading and do more consistently, it's exactly that. And my trade location, for the most part, I really like, and I is in a great space. My stop location could improve. And coach, shout out to you for the 2 ATR stop, because we've seen that so many times, right? Where if you have good trade location and a 2 ATR stop, most often it's so far out of the way that the market never ever gets there. So that's the one thing that I want to add more consistently. I learned that from Coach Paul this year, but it's something I need to add to the logistics of my trading, um, where more often than not, my stops are based on some type of market structure. Uh, and I end up getting ticked out on trades like the Dow trade today, right? The Dow trade, if I went 2 ATRs, my stop was so far out of the way that I wasn't getting hit.
Yeah, and why I use it, it's an old risk management principle, um, and I use it. I don't. I get stopped out rarely, and what do I mean by that? I it to me, it's an ejection seat. If I can afford, I look at it. Can I afford to take this trade if it goes 2 ATRs? That's I'm a test pilot. There's my ejection seat. I don't. It's going to happen. But that's the bottom line that I'm willing to risk. Then, as new information comes in, I don't have to wait for it to stop. It could hit a 4 to 1, whatever it is, 2 to 1 you're looking for. And then I'm out, or it gets under VWAP or a moving average, or one of the I as because new information's always coming in. And then if I get out before the 2 ATR stop, I just cancel it. But it's there because yes,
So we have a question. Isn't two
yes.
ATRs a lot of risk?
Oh, yeah, good. That's a great question. It's a relative question. 2 ATRs, as I just said, is to me, can I afford to lose that? Okay. Now let's take that example with the gold example from last night. I put in a 2 ATR loss, and let's say VWAP gets under the opening range and it hasn't hit my stop. I'm out. So when I say 2 ATRs, that, like I said, it's the if it hits that, I'm really wrong. And I get stopped out rarely, and I mean less than 20%. I mean, it's so yeah, but I know this, that's how much I'm going to lose. If I'm not willing to accept that, I'm not taking the trade.
One thing I'll add to that, coach, is if it sounds like a lot, let's go to the NASDAQ because I know a lot of traders trade the NASDAQ. And coach, I'm hearing you say this, right? And another trader asked two ATRs on what time frame? The time frame you enter the trade. So if I enter my trades on a 3 minute chart, it's going to be two ATRs on the 3 minute. If I'm looking at this bounce at VWAP that we had at that time, the ATR on the 3 minute chart was 23 points. So I need to risk about 50 points. If you're trading in a Top Step 50K account, you're probably saying, how the hell do these guys, what are these guys talking about? Right? They're telling me a bunch of nonsense. If that's the case and it sounds like too much risk, trade the micros and then tell me whether or not it's a lot of risk. It's $100. If it and it's $100 with good trade location, we're saying that more often than not, that's a stop that's so far out of the way that you can make a decision of whether or not you want to be in that trade still by the time it gets there. But if it sounds like too much, it's because you're trading too big. Uh,
Yeah, that's principle number one, and it
no,
helps
ho-
you.
go
Go
ahead,
ahead.
coach. Go. No, no, no. Please go ahead.
It helps you define when you compare that to your account versus being too tight. If you're less than one ATR, there's a very good chance that just natural variation in the price, you're going to get stopped out. So if you were getting stopped out a lot, your stop is too tight. The market doesn't care. It's going to vary. It's going to move in a pattern of volatility that doesn't care about where your stop is. So a lot of people, they get I want to risk $100. I'm going to risk $100 and I'm going to buy a NASDAQ. Okay, you got a NASDAQ. It's $100. That's 5 ticks. That's 1.25 ticks. Think about that. So I'm not saying you have to take that money, but you're going to wait for yourself to get stopped out. That's not the point. The point is, how much can I afford to take if I'm really wrong? Doesn't have to get there. It's a measure of volatility that helps you manage your account.
Over time, but this is good conversation here, and there's some questions here. And for Johnny, I am a fan of SMB. If we sound pessimistic, that's news to me. I try to not do anything but provide some optimism here. And if I'm sounding pessimistic at all, it's usually at the expense of myself, making jokes about my own trading. Um, but I don't want to do anything. I watch S&P all the time. I don't want to do anything but inspire people to do this the right way. I've lost a ton of money doing this on my own, and was able to recover a lot of it. Uh, but I want people to be realistic about what this opportunity is and what it presents to them, um, and be realistic about expectations. The leaderboard is not going to be for everybody, right? So optimism is, hey, there's still opportunity in this for you, and you don't have to make $500,000 in a year, right? What's extremely optimistic for me and why I keep doing this is uh okay, SMB is the best. Please go over there and watch them. And you'll get great education over there because I respect everything that those guys do over there. What I'm saying is that's not the reality for most people. My we're gonna end it here. Um, but my favorite coaching story in the last year was a dad who said, "Hey, what you helped me with in my trading, I was able to pay my kids uh, daycare for the entire year in a couple weeks." That's who I'm doing this for. And are there the traders that make six figures a year? Absolutely, they exist. But there's also the person that's just trying to cover their grocery bill. we need to speak to those people as well and setting realistic expectations about how you get there. So thank you for being here. If you want to go watch SMB videos, watch them. I'll probably be in the comments over there watching them with you as well. But I want nothing but to encourage people to do this the right way for them. So thank you for bringing that up. I don't know if you're trolling or not. I don't do very well with trolls at all. I'm gonna be honest with you. So thanks, Coach. You got anything before we go?
Amen to you, brother. One other thing I would add is you trade your capital. If you're making that much money, you have a bigger bankroll, period. That's I got 40 years of experience in this. If trade your account, trade your equity. So if that's the end, and also have a great weekend.
Please have a great weekend. Go do something fun. I'm gonna do something fun today. Coach, the men's league started up again on Sunday mornings, so I'm gonna be passing out some assists this morning. Shout out to Under Armour. I got some Curry fours that are real comfortable to play in, so I can't wait for that. We will talk to everyone next week. Have a great weekend. Everyone, please go enjoy yourselves.
All
And we'll
right.
see you Monday. Have a good one.
All right. Bye.